I thought I knew what humiliation felt like, until my own father called me a parasite in front of 37 family members at Easter dinner. What happened next changed everything between us forever. It was April 2nd, 2023, and I was sitting at the kids' table even though I'm 26 years old. My dad insisted on it every year, said it kept me humble. The dining room in his suburban Cleveland house was packed wall-to-wall with aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends. My mom had spent 3 days preparing her famous honey-glazed ham, and the whole place smelled like brown sugar and cloves. Everyone was laughing, sharing stories, catching up on life. It should have been perfect. But then Uncle Mike started talking about his son Trevor, who just bought his first house in Columbus. Smart kid, saved up for 2 years, got himself a real nice place with a 2-car garage. The whole table nodded approvingly, and I felt that familiar knot forming in my stomach. That's when my dad decided to chime in. "Well, some kids know how to be independent," he said, his voice carrying across both the adult table and where I was sitting. "And others just stick around like leeches, sucking their parents dry." The room went completely silent. I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway, could hear my cousin Sarah's baby making little cooing sounds upstairs. Everyone was staring at me now, and I felt my face burning red hot. "Dave," my mom whispered, but he wasn't done. 26 years old and still living at home, no real job, no direction. At some point you gotta cut the cord, you know? Can't enable this forever. He took a sip of his beer and shrugged like he'd just commented on the weather. I wanted to disappear into the floor. My Aunt Linda was looking at me with this pitying expression, and I could see my younger cousins exchanging glances. The worst part was that from the outside, my dad was absolutely right. I was 26, living in my childhood bedroom, working part-time at a local coffee shop. To everyone in that room, I looked exactly like what he said I was. What they didn't know was that, for the past 3 years, I'd been secretly paying most of my parents' bills. It started back in 2020 when my dad got laid off from his job at the steel plant. He was 54, had worked there for 28 years, and suddenly the company downsized his entire department. Mom was working as a part-time receptionist at a dentist's office, making maybe $1,200 a month. The unemployment benefits helped at first, but they ran out, and Dad was struggling to find work. Companies kept passing him over for younger candidates. I had just graduated college with a computer science degree and landed a remote job with a tech startup in Austin. The pay was good, really good actually, but I told my parents I was just doing some freelance web design work. I moved back home temporarily, said I was saving money while I figured out my next steps. What I was really doing was making sure they didn't lose the house. The mortgage payment was $2,800 a month. Property taxes, insurance, utilities, cable, cell phone bills for the whole family, car payments, groceries, my mom's prescription medications. I was covering about $4,000 in monthly expenses, and my parents thought I was just some aimless kid working at Grind Coffee for minimum wage and tips. I kept my real job completely secret because I knew my dad's pride would never let him accept help from his son. He'd rather lose everything than admit he needed me to take care of him. So I created this elaborate fiction where I was the family failure, and he could maintain his position as the provider and head of household. But sitting there at that Easter table, watching him humiliate me in front of everyone we knew, I started wondering if protecting his pride was worth destroying my own dignity. The conversation eventually moved on to other topics, but I barely heard any of it. I spent the rest of dinner pushing my mom's famous maple sweet potatoes around my plate, nodding when people talked to me, counting the minutes until I could escape to my room. When I finally got upstairs, I sat on my bed and stared at my laptop screen, looking at my bank account. 3 years of payments. Over $140,000 I'd quietly transferred to keep their lives stable. The next morning, Dad knocked on my door at 7 a.m. I thought maybe he was coming to apologize, or at least acknowledge that he'd been harsh the night before. Instead, he handed me a piece of notebook paper with 30-day notice written across the top in his scratchy handwriting. "I meant what I said yesterday," he told me, not quite making eye contact. "You're 26, and it's time you learn to stand on your own. You got till May 1st to find your own place." I stared at the paper, reading the words he'd scrawled underneath. "You have been living here rent-free for too long. Time to be an adult and take responsibility for your life. This is for your own good." "Dad, can we talk about this?" "There's nothing to talk about. Your mother agrees with me. We're done enabling you." He turned and walked away, leaving me holding this crumpled eviction notice from my own father. I sat there for about an hour, just staring at that piece of paper. Then I opened my laptop and started making a list. Every bill I'd been paying for 3 years. Every automatic transfer I'd set up. Every account where I was listed as the primary payment method. Mortgage payment through First National Bank. Auto pay from my checking account. Property taxes through the county website. My credit card on file. Electric bill with Cleveland Public Power. My bank account linked. Gas bill with Dominion Energy. My debit card saved in their system. Cable and internet with Spectrum. Auto pay from my account for 36 months. Both their cell phone plans with Verizon. My credit card charged monthly. Car insurance for both vehicles. My account. Health insurance premiums for Mom's policy through Cobra. My credit card. Water and sewer through the city. My bank routing number on file. Trash pickup service. My payment method. Even their Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime accounts were connected to my credit cards. I'd been so careful, so thorough, making sure every essential bill was covered without them ever knowing. And now he was kicking me out like I was some deadbeat who'd never contributed anything. That afternoon, while my parents were out running errands, I called every single company on my list. "Hi, I need to remove my payment method from this account and cancel the auto pay service." "Sure, I can help you with that. Can you confirm the account number?" One by one, I disconnected myself from their financial life. The mortgage company, the insurance companies, the utility providers. I didn't cancel their services. I just removed my payment information and turned off all the automatic payments I'd been making for years. The customer service representative at the mortgage company was especially thorough. "I see you've been the primary payment source for this account since August 2020. Are you sure you want to remove autopay? The next payment is due on May 1st. "Yes, I'm sure. Please remove my account completely and send all future billing notices to the property address on file." "Okay, I've made those changes. The account holders will need to set up a new payment method before the next due date to avoid any late fees or penalties." When I was finished, I looked at my list again. In about 30 days, my parents were going to get hit with over $4,000 in bills they'd forgotten they had to pay. Bills they couldn't pay because my dad was still unemployed and my mom was making barely enough to cover groceries. But I wasn't feeling guilty anymore. I was feeling something else entirely. The first sign that something was wrong came on May 3rd, 2 days after I'd moved into a studio apartment across town. My mom called me, and she sounded panicked. "Honey, I think there's been some kind of mistake with the mortgage company. They're saying we missed a payment, but that's impossible. Your father has always been so careful with the bills." I could hear Dad in the background, yelling about incompetent bank employees and computer errors. "Tell them we'll call back tomorrow and get this straightened out," he was saying. "Mom, maybe you should check when the last payment actually went through." Well, I don't really handle that stuff. Your father takes care of all the financial things, but he's sure there's been a mistake. Over the next few days, the calls kept coming. The electric company, the gas company, the cable provider. Each time, my parents were more confused and frustrated. They'd lived in that house for 15 years, had never missed a payment on anything, and suddenly every company was claiming they were behind on their bills. My dad called me on May 8th, and for the first time in years, he didn't sound angry or disappointed. He sounded scared. Listen, I think someone might have stolen our identity or hacked our accounts or something. All our bills are showing as overdue, and I can't figure out what's going on. Do you know anything about computers? Maybe you could take a look. I can try to help, but I'm pretty busy with work stuff. Work stuff at the coffee shop. I paused. Actually, Dad, I haven't worked at the coffee shop in 3 years. I've been working remotely for a tech company in Austin. I make about $80,000 a year. There was complete silence on the other end of the line. What are you talking about? I've been paying your bills, Dad. The mortgage, the utilities, insurance, everything. I've been covering about $4,000 a month for the past 3 years. More silence. That's impossible. Check your bank statements. Look at the mortgage payment history. Check with the utility companies and see what payment method they had on file. You'll see my name and account information on everything. I heard him put the phone down, heard muffled voices as he talked to my mom. When he picked up again, his voice was different. Why would you do that? Because you needed help, and I knew you'd never accept it if I offered directly. So I did it quietly and let you think I was just your loser son living at home for free. But you never said anything. You let us think. I let you keep your dignity. I let you keep feeling like you were taking care of your family, even when you couldn't. I thought that was more important than getting credit for helping. Another long pause. So when you moved out, I canceled all the automatic payments. Every single one. I figured if you wanted me out of your life, you probably didn't want my money either. The phone went quiet for almost a minute. When my dad finally spoke again, his voice was shaky. Son, I think I made a terrible mistake. Over the next few days, the full scope of the situation became clear. Without my payments, they were facing immediate foreclosure proceedings. The utility companies were scheduling service disconnections. The insurance policies were set to lapse, which would trigger additional penalties and legal issues with the mortgage company. My dad tried to get a payment extension, but 3 years of unemployment had destroyed his credit. My mom's part-time income wasn't even close to enough to qualify for any kind of loan modification. They were looking at losing everything within 60 days. On May 15th, my dad showed up at my apartment. I'd never seen him look so defeated. His shoulders were slumped, and he seemed like he'd aged 5 years in the past 2 weeks. I came to apologize, he said, standing in my doorway, and to ask if you might consider helping us again. I invited him in, made him a cup of coffee, and we sat at my tiny kitchen table. I was wrong about everything, he continued. I was so embarrassed about losing my job, so angry about not being able to provide for my family the way I always had. When I saw you living at home, I thought you were just taking advantage, being lazy. I didn't know you were taking care of us. I should have told you the truth from the beginning. No, I should have been paying attention. I should have wondered how we were managing to keep up with all the bills when I wasn't bringing in any income. I should have been grateful instead of resentful. He looked around my small apartment, taking in the simple furniture, the single window, the fact that I was clearly living far below my means. You could have been living anywhere, couldn't you? You could have gotten a nice place, new car, traveled. Instead, you stayed home and took care of us. You're my parents. It's what families do. And then I called you a leech in front of everyone. God, I'm so ashamed. We talked for 3 hours. He told me about how scared he'd been, how inadequate he felt, how hard it was to watch all his friends retiring or advancing in their careers, while he couldn't even get a call back for interviews. I told him about my job, about why I'd kept it secret, about how much it had hurt to be treated like a failure when I was working so hard to keep our family stable. Finally, he asked the question I'd been waiting for. Is there any way you could help us again? I know I don't deserve it, and I know you don't owe us anything, but we're going to lose the house. I'd been thinking about this for days, and I'd already decided what I was going to do. I'll help, but things have to be different this time. No more secrets, no more pretending. You need to know exactly what I'm contributing, and I need to be treated like a partner in this family, not like a burden. Absolutely, whatever you want. And you need to start looking for work again. Really looking, not just going through the motions. I'm happy to help support the family, but I won't enable you to give up on yourself. I understand. I reactivated all the payment systems the next day, but this time I set up a shared spreadsheet where we could all see exactly what was being paid and when. I moved back home, but we established clear boundaries and expectations. Most importantly, my dad started taking his job search seriously. It took him 4 more months, but he eventually found work with a smaller manufacturing company. The pay wasn't as good as his old job, but it was steady income. We adjusted the financial arrangements so that he was covering what he could, and I was supplementing the difference. The real change, though, was in how we treated each other. No more condescension, no more assumptions. We started having actual conversations about money, about goals, about what we each needed to feel respected and valued. Last Easter, exactly 1 year after the disaster, we had the family over again. This time, when Uncle Mike started talking about his kids' achievements, my dad interrupted him. You know, I don't think I ever properly introduced my son's work. He's a software engineer, makes more than I ever did, and he's been helping keep this family afloat for years. I'm proud as hell of him. The whole table turned to look at me, but this time it felt completely different. My Aunt Linda smiled and asked about my job. My younger cousins wanted to know about working in tech. Uncle Mike seemed genuinely impressed and asked if I had any advice for his son who was considering a career change. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged at the adult table. The experience taught me 3 crucial things about family dynamics and money. First, secrets always come with a cost, even when your intentions are good. By hiding my success, I created a dynamic where resentment could grow and fester. Second, sometimes people need to face the full consequences of their actions before they can truly understand and appreciate what they've been taking for granted. And third, helping someone shouldn't require you to diminish yourself or accept disrespect. If you're in a similar situation, here are 3 practical steps you can take. First, have honest conversations about money and contributions, even if they're uncomfortable. Clarity prevents resentment. Second, set clear boundaries about how you expect to be treated, and be willing to enforce those boundaries even if it means temporary hardship for everyone involved. And third, remember that helping family is admirable, but it should never come at the expense of your own dignity and self-worth. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life family drama and lessons learned the hard way. Because sometimes the best way to help someone is to stop helping them exactly the way they expect you to.